To my children and grandchildren, my experiences, compared to those who suffered for years, may seem trivial. However, for me, they were invaluable experiences that I will never forget. Now, more than 40 years after the war, peace and prosperity in Japan seems to be taken for granted. Our cities are overflowing with food and clothing. It's an era of overindulgence, where hunger is unknown. However, as reported in newspapers and on television, there are many people around the world suffering from war and famine. I wonder if this era will continue for Japan alone. It is with this concern that I have decided to write this story, hoping to share my experiences with my children and grandchildren who know nothing of war and its horrors. I suspect there are not many people in this room, including myself, who can speak from first-hand experience about World War II. And yet, even without that direct experience, I believe the memory of war has been passed down and lives on as our collective memory. And this belief or spirit is at the heart of my work, the translation of my late grandfather's memoir. In translating it, two things gave me pause. The first is, how have we received, or perhaps failed to receive, the memories of war? And secondly, what kind of war memories are necessary for future peace? Now, you might be wondering about the title, Broken Map Home. Map is generally meant to give you a clear route. But when it's broken, our journey becomes non-linear and perhaps chaotic and unpredictable. So obviously the title is a metaphor for a life journey where we must find a new kind of home in the absence of clear paths. It also can speak to finding belonging, not in a physical sense, but in a shared understanding and a community with others whose maps has been broken. So it invites you to ask, why broken? Why a map? What is home? To give you a brief background, my grandfather's family were part of a large waves of Japanese civilians encouraged to migrate to Korean Peninsula as part of a national policy to secure colonial control after Japan's annexation in 1910. While many historians trace the Japanese militarism to the Meiji Restoration of 1868, I defer to their expertise on this complex history. In 1929, during the Great Depression, a period that only accelerated Japanese colonial policy, my grandfather's family settled in Korea. And just 3 months before Japan's surrender on August 15, 1945, my grandfather was drafted to the military. He was 29 years old, and he had a wife, 4 children, and aged mother. And immediately after Japan's surrender, Korea was divided at the 38th parallel, with Soviet Union occupying the north and United States the south. By a twist of fate, my grandfather found himself north of the newly drawn border. And his memoir starts at this exact moment, vividly depicting his narrow escape from death. And you might be wondering, why this memoir? Why now? In the face of deep-seated tension, I believe the most powerful tool we have is an individual human connection. And this is my small way of bridging a gap. By translating his stories, I hope to depict more nuanced picture of what war is about. His story illuminates the complex human nature, being both a perpetrator and victim. A civilian from aggressor nation migrates to Korea only to become a fugitive in the post-war chaos. His story compels us to move beyond a simple binary of good and evil, allies, enemies. It also highlights the profound tragedy of how it also highlights the profound tragedy of how war tosses people into the roles that they never chose. What is the relationship between the nation and individual in it? As we all know, the same complex dynamics echoes in modern conflicts, and with so many displaced people globally, over 120 million. Compassion requires to look beyond the simple or easy labels and confront the full, complex nature of each individual experience. Which brings me to a quote from one of my historical heroes, Motoori Norinaga, who wisely said, "When it comes to thinking of our past, the power of one or two people is not enough to clarify things completely. After I'm gone, when a good idea comes forth, do not cling to my interpretations. Expose my mistakes and disseminate a good idea." This, I believe, the key to preserving our collective memories of war. To see it not as a static and finished history, but rather as an ongoing, ever-evolving conversation. Personal living accounts like my grandfather's stories are indeed an invitation for all of us to engage and consider our own relationship with the past. They challenge us to ask, why do you choose to remember? What do you remember and why? And what parts of this history must we carry forward for a better future, the world peace? I hope this book will serve as another momentum for us to find pathway forward to build a more empathic and peaceful future.